cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Well.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine little radio program and podcast known internationally as the world-famous
Hi, Mom.
Smokin' and Toastin'. It's so nice to have you on board as we get a little excited about today's show because, Ian, it's so perfect to put a show together where we're going to actually drink cheap booze.
Cheap booze.
Yeah. Now, we've done this before. We did the show where we did the multiple taste tests of malt liquor.
Yeah, the malt liquor one was something else.
And I'm still feeling a little nauseous. That was several months ago, but it's, Ian and I joked about this, but it was like it was when we were still doing the show in the pandemic, and of course we're still in the pandemic, but it was back before we returned to the studio, so we were doing the show from home. And over Skype.
And it's a good thing.
So every now and then I'll, because I live in a big building and has a front desk and a concierge downstairs, and every now and then I'll leave Ian something for the show that we're going to be tasting or whatever. I'll leave it for him in a package downstairs, and he'll swing by and pick it up. Well, in this particular week, Ian left a package for me, and I said, how come I'm always leaving you like your bottle of 25-year Florida Cagna that the Florida Cagna people sent us, and you're leaving me a box of malt liquor?
It was very difficult for me. I actually had a basket and was planning on doing like a gift basket with all malt liquors
wrapping it all up and all malt liquor.
And at the last moment, I thought, that would be hilarious, but I'm going to go ahead and just put it in a discreet package so that.
Well, it was. I would say that I enjoyed it anyway, but quite frankly, I didn't.
I'm assuming from the amount of beers and stuff that go through your concierge desk, they probably think you're just hopeless anyway.
Oh, well, not only do I get shipments of stuff that I try to order from like out of state and things that aren't available here, and that arrives, but usually during the week I'll, run out and pick up maybe the spirit that we're going to have on the show and maybe some extra beer. So I come back in, and then, of course, I have to ask them for a cart so I can wheel it upstairs. And they pretty much think I'm an alcoholic. Right. There's no doubt about it.
Like, that place is not that big. How does he keep putting so much booze in it?
It's like, and then you want to offer an explanation like, I'm not going to drink all this myself. But that makes it seem
it worse.
Even worse, yeah.
Right.
So, well, welcome to show number 202. We are halfway to 500 and excited about it. Today, we will be drinking bottom shelf bourbon and checking it out to see how it tastes. If you're going to go the cheap route,
normally I'd say, man, I'm really excited about that, but I'm a little sketchy about that right now.
I don't know if you saw on Mr. Twirligig, that's our bottle of bourbon we'll be tasting
Ancient
today.
Age.
So here's the thing: I picked that one because I found this article, and we'll be referring to it during the show, about the best bottom shelf bourbons, and it was one of the ones that the article listed that should be tried if you were looking for a less expensive bourbon.
On a regular basis, I get Weller, the regular Weller.
Yeah.
Not the reserve.
Right, just the regular. And what does that cost a bottle?
$18.
Right, so that could definitely be considered. If you're under 20, you're bottom shelf.
Good.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting
for
to
what
see.
It is. I'm not saying it compares to some of the much nicer whiskeys, but it's all right.
We have brought some reasonably expensive bottles in, some from your collection, some that I've gone out and procured, and we even had, if you remember when the guy from Bob Dylan's whiskey label was here, Heaven's Door, he even brought a bottle that retailed for $400.
Yes.
So I don't think that's the most expensive bourbon, most expensive whiskey I've ever tasted, but it's definitely up there.
That's pretty up there, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. So, and it was good. Make no mistake about it. So, anyway, we're excited about today's show, even though we're drinking bottom shelf bourbon because. Oh, and I just wanted to mention, right when we signed on to Facebook Live, we got a note from our buddy Christopher Hart, and if there's any. He does his own, show,
Whiskey
Neat, which is a great show, and he's one of the guys that has really done a lot to put our city, Houston, on the map when it comes to whiskey and bourbon, and his
events.
His whiskey social is terrific. And so if there's any one person I always feel a little self-conscious about, because we have him on the show a lot. And
he's an expert.
Yeah, he's an expert, exactly. And so I always feel a little self-conscious about if I'm bringing a whiskey to the show when he's here. It's like, is he going to think, oh, man, you know nothing about whiskey. What'd you bring that for? So I just noticed today that as soon as we signed on Facebook Live, he sent us a note like, hey, what's up? And I was like, oh, great. He's here when we're sampling Ancient Age. He's going to think we're just completely clueless.
You say
about
that,
whiskey.
but then the next time he comes on, he'll probably bring a bottle of Ancient Age that was like distilled and bottled in like 1983.
Yeah, and
or
it's really
something, and it's
amazing. Yeah, that's what he would do. But the one difference will be if we wind up telling you that the Ancient Age is any good, you'll be able to go out and buy a bottle. It's freely available at retail stores everywhere. So anyway, that's just my little jab at Chris because he loves to bring whiskeys on his show and tell us how great they are. And we go, oh, I got to get some of that, and then it's not available at retail anywhere. Yeah. Anyway, we will be trying to counterbalance the bottom shelf whiskey a little bit. I brought in some beers today that I'm hoping will be beers that we'll enjoy. I've not had any of these, so I'm excited about trying them. From our friends in Arlington, Texas at Legal Draft, we've brought their Fall Guy. It's their autumn lager. It doesn't classify itself as an Oktoberfest, but it has that look to it in the can, so we'll be trying that out and
I
see.
love this called Fall Guy.
Fall Guy, yeah. Well, all their stuff at Legal Draft it's some kind of like legal word. You know, it's something to do with a trial or a person in a trial or something. So Fall Guy obviously would classify for that.
There's a lawyer's office that I drive by on my way into downtown. So from my house to downtown is not very far, but when I take that exit, there's a lawyer. His name is Tim Hootman. And he's got the most unique place. Like apparently he does metal sculpture and stuff, but he's got this great big.
Oh, I know this place. I've driven past that before.
It's hard to miss.
Yeah,
but he's got this metal sign out front that says Tim Hootman, appellate lawyer.
Yeah,
very appealing.
Yeah, I love it. You know, my wife works in a law office. She's a legal secretary, and she has told me before that one of the named partners at her firm, a lawyer named Larry Veselka, has his own special martini, and I keep trying to get her to tell me exactly what does he put in it, because he calls it the Veselka, which is his own name, and he makes it with gin and vodka. So I was thinking that maybe if we can figure out how to make one.
Is that just in case your gin martini isn't strong enough?
Well, I knew you were going to say that, but the idea I thought would be if we do our vodka shake-off that we've been talking about, or our martini shake-off where we have two guys in, one makes gin martini, one makes vodka martini, we compare and contrast, that maybe that would be a good final drink, is the Veselka that combines the two spirits into one. But she says that he claims it's fantastic, so I don't know if she's ever tasted one or not. We'll get to that. The Veselka. Remember that. Also on today's beer selection from Woodland Empire Brewing in Boise, Idaho, we'll be trying their Broke My Own IPA. They have an IPA series they call the Mixtape Series, and it's their kind of rotating series, and one of the latest ones from that is Broke My Own. And I don't know anything about this beer. I haven't tasted it, but I did leave one over at my stepson's house in his refrigerator the other night. We got together to see the grandbaby, and I brought some beers over. That was one of them. It wound up staying at his house when I left, and he sent me a photo of it the next day, the can, and poured it into a glass, and this text that said, "This is delicious." So we'll see.
Nice.
We'll see if it's as good as he claims. So, and then finally, I think you're going to be excited about this one, Ian, from San Diego, California, and the Abnormal Beer Company.
I love the name already.
Yeah, love the name. We'll be doing their Unification Imperial Stout.
Nice.
And it's a nice little bomber, and it's looking good. And, of course, the Ancient Age Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, so it'll be a busy show. CBS Sunday Morning did a segment recently where they thanked Cigar Aficionado magazine on television. Kind of an interesting and unusual thing. Usually, anytime tobacco products are mentioned on television, it's
a scandal.
Or it's something negative about health risks or something like that. So we'll take a look at that and find out why it happened. And there's a new list out. You know how we love these lists of the 40 most delicious craft beers. Now, this is interesting because it's not
40
about
most
best-selling.
delicious.
They didn't even ask favorites when they did this little survey. They asked what beers you thought were most delicious. So it'll be interesting to see.
They pared it down to 40.
And they pared it down to 40. So it'll be interesting to see like what styles sort of predominate. Is it IPA heavy? Is it all about stouts and barley wines? How does it balance out? So that'll be fun to go through. And if we have time to get to this, the best bourbon bargains according to Forbes. So this will fit right
That
in
ties
with our
in today,
this will
right?
fit right in with our lower shelf bourbon thing. So
I feel like I should have a lot of reverb on my voice every time I do that.
ancient age. It will be interesting to see because I think this article is really more about whiskeys and bourbons in the sort of Buffalo Trace price range, that
Right.
sort of 20 to 30. But it'll still be a nice addition to the show, I think. And drinking news, careful where you sit. That is our headline for today. We'll be
I
getting
love
to
that
that
already.
as well. So I was so excited that last week I was able to bring you drinking news that began with the phrase "a Florida man," because
yes.
that always seems to make it work real well for you. So, so interesting week for me. I have been pretty busy. How about you? Have you had time to mellow out for a minute?
Started working a little bit.
Yeah. Hopefully you had time to mellow out.
Teaching some kids guitar lessons. I got out to smoke a cigar this morning. That was pretty nice.
Good. Well, tell me about what you tasted.
Went rummaging through my humidor, and I realized I don't think I've ever done a review on the classic Nub Maduro.
Now, you're a big fan of the nubs. I'm a smaller ring gauge guy, and we'll enjoy a nub occasionally. But the thing that always blows me away when I have one is that it looks like it would be a really short smoke, and it's not.
And it's not.
Yeah, it may only be about that long, but it lasts about as long as some of the Churchills that I've had. So, so
Just
this
to make
is
sure,
the
I
nub.
did send you pictures, right?
Okay.
Did I send you 3 emails or 2? 3. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Good. So
Awesome.
The
Because
pictures are
I
in
took
place?
some fun pictures of the
Oh,
Nub.
good. I'll be interested to see them. The Nub Maduro. What'd you find?
So the Nub Maduro is it's the Nub Maduro 460. It's a 4-inch by 60 ring gauge cigar, and so it's short. It's basically they tried to make it smoke like a Churchill with half the length.
Okay.
And their initial idea for Nub, I believe, was to have a cigar start right in its sweet spot.
Right.
They do a pretty good job. I got to tell you, I'm a fan of Nubs. I like them. I like the tubos especially. Like, this is just an absolute convenience factor. Is the tubos you just stick in your pocket. They're
It's so
short,
easy.
they're small, but it's still a decent length smoking cigar. It
Right.
smokes like a full-size cigar. So it's not just a 20-minute smoke. You're looking at 40 minutes to an hour at least, okay?
It's a beautiful little
The
cigar.
appearance,
looking at
dark
the,
brown,
picture.
semi-smooth, slightly oily, firm overall. They're always made well. I've had many Nubs, especially the Maduro being my favorite in the line. I've had many of these. Has the simple single band on it, brown with the gold around the edges, says Nub. The pre-light sniff on this, earth, chocolate, spice, tea leaf, cedar. That's what I got right off it. The pre-light draw, I used a clip on it. Effortless, earthiness and spice, hints of chocolate and coffee. Really nice. I just wanted to rhyme that. To the initial light, tangy pepper and spices backed up by rich earth. Right off the bat, just this great earthiness coming out. The first third of this, cedar and chocolate dominate the palate, followed by pepper and spices. Finishes with coffee, solid ash, perfect burn.
Nice.
The second third of this, same.
Now, you're talking about thirds on a cigar this short. So you're talking about really only like an inch and a half in, and you're into the second third.
Yeah, but that being said, it takes about the same amount of time as a cigar that was 6 inches long.
Right.
You know, I mean, the bigger ring gauge, and it smokes pretty slow. The ash is solid. I don't know if those pictures are up yet, but the ash is very solid.
I'm seeing a little ash on the one that's up now. But
By the last third of this, the pepper begins to ramp up. The cedar is very strong, and the coffee is more present. The chocolate notes remain. Solid ash, perfect burn.
nice.
When I say solid ash, I didn't actually lose the ash on this cigar until the last third of this cigar.
Nice.
So I started playing around. You know the ad that they have for Nub?
Yeah, where it's got
Where they have the...
where like almost all of the cigar is an ash and there's only a tiny bit
I
left?
recreated that.
Oh, nice. So this is what you were saying about
So
having
this
fun.
is what you're going to see. I
with
had
the
a little
photos.
fun with it.
Well, I can see, the photo that I'm looking at now. It's burned in about halfway or
But
so.
wait, there's more because it lasted even longer than that. And
That's
I
so
just
great.
stood it up on the ashtray on
I
its
can see
ash.
that. Yeah, I love that.
Even after I took the label off, it burned past the label, and I did that. And then, right at the last third of the cigar, the ash fell off.
Did it get on your shirt?
It fell onto my shorts.
Of course.
yes.
Of course it did.
Right onto my
Your
shorts.
clothing has this magnetic ability to attract
It
cigar
does.
ash.
It's amazing. I want to talk about the price to quality on this cigar.
All right. What does a
The
nub like that
burn
cost?
is perfect on these things, even if it changes a little bit. Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it?
That is
even if
great.
it changes a little bit, even if it gets a little uneven, it always fixes itself. I don't think in my memory I've had a nub that burned badly. This usually costs about $7,
Wow.
$6 to $7 for a nub Maduro. That I give it a 5.
Yeah.
At $6 to $7. However, I bought these on sale. I got a box of them, and I paid roughly $4 a piece for each one of these.
So I bet that
At
number goes
$4
up
a
at that
piece,
price. Huh?
I give it a 7.
Yeah,
it's a
wow, that's a
great
solid-
cigar at
yeah,
$4 a piece. When you
solid
can find
number.
them on sale, but they're worth $7 every day. So
Yeah.
that's my Nub Maduro story. There you
I
have it.
love it. I love it. That's good stuff. And it's always interesting when you go to the humidor thinking, what do I have in here that I could smoke and talk about on the show that I haven't smoked and talked about already? And sometimes it's the most obvious things
Yeah, they're
that
so
you always
ubiquitous
have.
in
You know?
my humidor that I never think about talking about them. You know.
Yeah. Our show, by the way, is brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com, spelled just
Got
like
some
it
great
sounds.
shirts.
They do have some great shirts. And they are a sponsor of the show, so we ask you to be a supporter of them. They have the coolest shirts for cigar fans, all starting under $20. Grab them for you or anyone you know that loves cigars at MyCigarShirts.com because cigars.
Because cigars. Remember, you're even cooler if you buy 2.
That's right. And by the way, Ian, I've heard through the grapevine that there will be a number of new designs coming to MyCigarShirts.com soon. So I'm wondering if maybe there's some sort of phrase that you've said here
More
on the show that
phrases.
may show up on a shirt
Show
soon.
up on a shirt.
The most popular one is a phrase that Ian said here on the show, which is, "You can't hurry up and smoke a cigar."
I love that
That's
shirt.
a great shirt. Yeah, it really is. So I had an interesting cigar this week, and it was one that, believe it or not, I had not smoked before, but I've smoked a number of the ones in this line. I tasted the Undercrown sun-grown Robusto. And now I love the regular Undercrowns. I love the Maduros. The Sun-Grown was the third installment in this line from Drew Estate. And if I remember the story correctly, the reason Undercrown came to be was that Drew Estate had their very best rollers working on the Liga Privadas. And the Liga Privada is just a fantastic cigar.
yeah,
And they
absolutely
use some pretty, some pretty rare and expensive tobacco in it. And so what was happening was that the rollers who were allowed to smoke while they do their job, they were smoking too many of the Liga Privadas, and there was this huge demand for them that Drew Estate wasn't being quite able to fill. So they went into the rollers and said, listen, we appreciate everything you do. You're welcome to smoke. Please don't smoke the Liga Privadas for a while until we can catch up with this demand. So the rollers, on their own, decided to put together a whole other blend of tobacco just for themselves so that they could smoke. And I guess Jonathan Drew and some of the guys at Drew Estates wound up trying them and saying, these are fantastic. Can you make these so we can release them? And that's how the Undercrown line was actually born for Drew Estate. So the Sun-Grown is the third installment in the line, and the others have gotten great ratings in the magazines and stuff. It is a cigar sporting a Sun-Grown Ecuadorian tobacco wrapper. Binder and filler in it is from Nicaragua. So you're expecting it to be a fairly strong cigar, and it is. It's also a really pretty cigar, deep brown, fairly smooth wrapper, very classy auburn
There's a
and
little
gold
reddish
band.
kind of
It's got
to
just
the brown,
just this little bit of red, which is enhanced by the band, which has got this auburn and gold on it, which just makes the whole thing look a little more red. The pre-light on this baby offered me some notes of leather and wood, and I got the sense it was going to be a bit on the spicy side. That wound up being a correct assumption. I used a punch, I lit it up, and I was greeted with a nice spicy blast. Now, it wasn't exactly that traditional Nicaraguan pepper blast that I get from so many of the AJs that I know and that I smoke pretty regularly. Instead, this is more like, I don't know, a combination of different spices. It was hard for me to, wasn't really red pepper. Maybe it was almost like Habano pepper in there just a bit. I don't know. Whatever it was, you kind of got it on the front of the tongue, whereas the Nicaraguan pepper sometimes you get more towards the back of the palate.
Right.
So it was a very interesting experience, and I liked it.
Green pepper is a little more front of the tongue.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
maybe there was some of that. It was spicy, but it was very pleasant. This Underground Sun-Grown was very robust and full-bodied, as I was expecting from the very beginning. First third gave me plenty of leather and spice, and second third, this little bit of subtle sweetness kind of started to develop that was a really nice sort of counterbalance to the spiciness. That will either work or it won't, and in this case, it totally worked. It made the cigar nice and nice and complex, especially for such a full-bodied smoke. I mentioned this, I think, with one of the last full-bodied cigars that I talked about. Is like, you appreciate when they can be really powerful and still have a lot of complexity. Some of the really fun, powerful cigars are really more like kind of a one-note thing, and they're still very enjoyable. But when you get this kind of complexity as well, it's a really good thing. Last third ramped the strength up even a little more and gave me some flavors of toasty wood and some cinnamon on the retrohale, which was kind of cool.
Nice.
I really enjoyed it. It's a bold cigar. Construction was quite good, lots of smoke, and an even burn at $7 to $8 a stick. Now, it's a Robusto. If it had been a Toro or longer, it probably would have gotten even a higher rating. But at $7 to $8 a stick, I enjoyed it enough to give it a slight bump above its price. So I'll say price to quality, 5.5. It was good. I had no problem paying 7 to 8. If it had been 9, I think I probably still would have been okay.
Let me
with
get this straight. You smoked a cigar that wasn't made by AJ Fernandez?
This is several weeks in a row I've had a cigar that wasn't made by AJ. Speaking of AJ, by the way, I read this week where he's going to be releasing his first cigars that are available in a bundle instead of a box. So I'm assuming now the Last Call by AJ Fernandez is kind of his less expensive line. So I'm assuming these may be in that same general price range, but the Last Call still come in a box. These will be a bundle. So one of the things I like about bundled cigars is you're not paying for the box.
Right.
But they have a tendency to often be the less expensive ones or the short fillers or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see how these come out and how they work. I don't know where the man's getting all this tobacco. I really don't. With all the different things he's doing for different companies.
I don't know how he keeps track of it.
With all the different cigars he has in his own line, and yet here he is releasing something new. So that'll be interesting and fun. Okay, hopefully the show will be interesting and fun today as we drink some bottom shelf bourbon, talk a little bit about cheaper whiskeys, and we'll be trying the new Fall Guy Autumn Lager from Legal Draft in our next segment. Plus, Drinking News is on the way and a whole lot more, so stay with us for a fun show number 202, brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. This is Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is Smoking and Toasting, show number 202. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. It is a great website with cool T-shirts that are just perfect for cigar lovers. And if you are one yourself, you should check it out. And they're also perfect for gift giving. Ian, hint, hint. Crew's birthday coming up. Weeks.
I feel like somebody's getting older at the end of this month.
Yes, someone is getting older, and it's definitely me.
And they're trying to tell me something.
I feel like I'm getting older every day is what I feel like. Welcome back to show number 202. We'll be talking about drinking bottom shelf bourbon, and we tried setting something up during the break to see if it would work. So, Ian, tell us about the bourbon we're going to be drinking today.
Are you talking about Ancient Age?
Oh, see, it worked.
Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey?
Yeah, it worked.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah, nice,
Yeah.
Okay.
Try it one more time.
What was the name of that bourbon again,
called
Ian?
Ancient Age.
That
Dude,
works.
that sounds awesome.
That works pretty well, actually. We are so easily entertained here at Smoking and Toasting with our little
We could do a
red
whole segment
sound
just
effects
doing that.
box and some reverb on the board. We spare every expense, as you know. So Yep. That's part of the fun.
Excuse, please.
Welcome back to the show. We are excited to be trying a new draft beer here. Well, it's not a draft technically, but it comes from the folks at Legal Draft in Arlington, Texas. So, Ian, while we pour that beer, I want to get started on the first.
I feel like you're trying to tell me that I should pour the beer.
I think you should pour the beer, sir. It's a good thing for you to do while I maybe start working on the first part of this list of the 40 most delicious craft beers. Oh, now that was interesting. We'll be playing with that, I'm sure. So when it comes to beer, this article says, and this was an article in USA Today, by the way, it says, there's nothing wrong with everyday thirst-quenching lager, readily available, easy to quaff, and usually inexpensive. But lovers of craft beer look for something more than just a cooling tipple, choosing from an ever-growing wealth of artisanal brews, offering complexity and unique combinations of flavors and aromas. I have a feeling the author was getting paid by the word on this article. Anyway, there were, as of last summer, according to the Brewers Association, 7,480 active craft breweries around America, which was up just a little over 1,000 from 2018 to 2019. And, of course, they all love to experiment, so there's so many beers out there, so they said to make the job a little easier, they compiled this list of what might fairly be called the 40 most delicious craft beers made in America. The ranking is based on scores and reviews from a variety of sources, with particular attention paid to Beer Advocate's annual rating of what it considers to be the top 250 beers in the world. So they took, on Untappd and Beer Advocate and these sites, people drink the beers, they report that they're drinking the beers, and they give their own rating to the beers. So this kind of takes it to the people as opposed to just a group of beer experts, let's say, that might be telling you what they like. So starting at number 40, and maybe we can did you already taste this beer?
I did.
So
First off, I want to talk about how it smells.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to walk in and someone was baking a pumpkin pie,
Yeah.
and then you take out the pumpkin smell,
and just say with that baking spice and sort of flour and
yeah, that's what it smells
tastes.
like. It's pretty awesome, actually.
So it almost could be considered a pumpkin beer or an Oktoberfest.
It's not a pumpkin beer; it's more Oktoberfesty. But it's like they don't call it either one of those. They say it is
an autumn lager. Is that what they say?
Yeah, they call it autumn lager, Fall Guy autumn lager. You have the right to drink great beer with flavor and character, made locally and enjoyed with friends and family. Know your rights. You can almost feel the nip in the air with this autumn lager. Is this from Texas? Nip in the air?
Yes, it's
from Arlington.
From Arlington.
That's weird. Okay,
they get a little nip up there.
You can't feel much nip
eventually,
in the air.
A nip in the air for us.
You can
happens.
almost feel the nip in the air with this autumn lager. Cinnamon and nutmeg give a spicy nose to a malty, round mouthfeel. I agree with all of that. This is
the maltiness
really nice,
combined with that sort of cinnamon vibe that you were mentioning, is what gives it that pumpkin pie without the pumpkin flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the nutmeg, so I'm a little more sensitive to nutmeg since we had it last week. We scraped it over our.
Yes, we had it
remember
on
we had it
that.
over
I
the,
wish I could go to a tiki bar
That's
beer.
right.
That
So
beer was so good.
It's kind of real present in my memory, and so it stood out pretty big.
Well, what I like about this is that on the aftertaste, on the finish, you can almost get that sensation of your mouth. You know when you eat a really good piece of pie with a homemade pie crust, and it leaves that little almost like flour vibe in your mouth after you crunch up the crust. You get a little bit of that on the finish for this beer. This is actually quite good and very different from a lot of the Oktoberfest that are out there.
The can on this it says Fall Guy. It's all like nice muted fall colors. And it's got an acorn with arms and legs falling out of a tree into a pile of leaves.
I like it. Fall Guy. Makes sense, right?
Yeah,
makes
sense. Hey, good job, guys.
Yeah, those guys have put together some really great beers. We haven't had one of theirs on the show in a while. So I was excited when I saw this and realized it was one we hadn't tasted. And
it's delicious.
We could try something new. On the list of 40 breweries, or not breweries, but the 40 most delicious craft beers. At number 40 is an entry from Sierra Nevada, and it's their Sierra Nevada Bigfoot. Now, the Bigfoot is a dark but extremely hoppy ale. It's an English-style barley wine, so it's a 9.6, and it's available seasonally in the winter months. I'm trying to remember. Have we done the Bigfoot on the show? I think we have.
Bigfoot, yes.
Yeah. It's good stuff. That seems right down your wheelhouse. Although, if I remember, it is a little more of an American barley wine.
Yeah, it's more hoppy than I generally prefer. I don't mind it a little bit, but like we did a vertical of it at the Brew Club a couple weeks ago, and by the third or fourth one, I was like, well, I'm kind of done with that.
Well, it comes in at number 40. At 39 from Avery Brewing in Colorado is their beer called Tweak, and I don't think we've had this one, Ian.
I don't think so either.
It's a bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Stout with plenty of punch. It is, are you ready? 16% ABV.
I love it already.
That is a boozy beer.
Yeah, it is very boozy.
It says it has a dose of coffee. It was originally labeled as Meth Addict, M-E-P-H, Meth Addict, and also Coffeestopheles, which I think is a great name.
Nice.
But it's currently called Tweak. So maybe that's maybe a reference back to the Meth Addict name.
Yeah.
At number 38 is S9. It comes from Transmitter Brewing in New York. It's a Brooklyn-born brew, pale and alive in the Belgian Saison style, but also full of flavor, they say, with a bracing and slightly bitter finish. We've had beer, I think, from Transmitter before, but I don't think we've tried that one. So we'll have to keep ourselves on the lookout for that. Let me give you a few more of these. From Trillium Brewing in Massachusetts, their beer called Headroom. It's described by the people at the brewery as the boldest, most daring, hoppiest beer we could possibly dream up. So this strikes me as something I would probably like, and you
maybe,
you would, yeah. It's a New England IPA. They say it's full of tropical fruit and citrus flavors. The Beer Advocate ranking on it is a 4.64 out of 5, so that's pretty good. From Two Roads Brewing in Connecticut comes beer number 36, and several of these are beers I haven't heard of or tried, so that's kind of exciting. The Area 2 Table Terroir. The beer justifies borrowing the term terroir from wine tasting jargon, and that basically just means all of the
earth,
the combined environmental factors that give wine grapes their distinctive character, particularly the soil. And anyway, they source the malt, hops, and yeast all in their native state of Connecticut. It is low in alcohol. It's only 3.7%, but it has a lightly fruity character with some peppery spice to it. Area 2.
That sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, it does sound fun. At 35 is our old friends from Bell's Brewery in Michigan and their Expedition Stout, which is bourbon barrel aged. This one I know you've had.
Yes.
This is dark and chocolatey, a little bit of a whiskey flavor to it, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Good stuff. We'll do a few more of these. From Stone Brewing in California comes one that I don't know if I've had. Now, we've had their stout, but have we had the Fyodor Imperial Stout? I don't think we have.
Never had
It's
it.
a dense, heavy Russian Imperial Stout. It weighs in at 13.1%. And it floods the palate, they say, with flavors of chocolate, coffee, caramel, and vanilla.
It sounds like you have to cut that like a loaf.
Yeah, all of which sounds pretty good to me. Yeah. Would you like fruitcake or the Fyodor? I'll take the Fyodor. Thank you. The Abyss is a
had that.
beer from Deschutes in Colorado, Deschutes. It pulls in a 4.5 out of 5 rating on Beer Advocate. It is a wintertime stout brewed with molasses and
Delicious.
licorice and aged in oak, smoky and complex.
Comes in a great looking bottle too.
At 32 is Double Ganger from Treehouse Brewing in Massachusetts. A lot of Massachusetts.
Double Ganger?
Not Doppelganger, but Double Ganger, which I guess means the same thing. It is cloudy and frothy, but fresh and juicy, with citrusy hops character and plenty of fruit on the palate, and an attractively bitter finish. So even though it doesn't identify as an IPA, it sounds like an IPA. Yeah, exactly. And at number 31, one that we are familiar with from Goose Island in Illinois, the Chicago area, rating a 4.66 out of 5. It's the Bourbon County Stout.
Yeah,
and that is just worth
good.
getting every year when it comes out. It is very chocolatey. It's dark black, and even though it's owned by AB, the brewers still seem to take quite a bit of pride.
It
in
is
this.
also the original.
It's aged in its most recent incarnation in a combination of Wild Turkey, Buffalo Trace, and Heaven Hill bourbon barrels.
This
sounds just so much
amazing,
fun. Yeah,
doesn't it?
and it adds the sort of pronounced whiskey note to it. So, all right, we'll pick up with the list again when we come back in another segment here. There's also a lot.
Couple quick questions
Yes.
on the comments here. Blake was asking, what's this cigar called? The two cigars we reviewed today were the Nub Maduro 460 and the
Undercrown sun-grown Robusto. Yeah, and it was really good. I think we both really would give big thumbs up.
Yes,
to
and
the
then he
cigars
also
we had
followed
there.
up with another question. So I want to sound like James Earl Jones.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
believe the answer is
Yes, I do. Just like James Earl Jones.
I like it. So you didn't tell us what the question was.
no, that was it.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
So do you want to sound like? Yes, I do.
Oh, do you? Oh, that was the question. I got it. All right. So, all right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We have more to taste here on the show today, and I'm really excited about this IPA, Broke My Own from Woodland Empire. We'll get to that in the next segment. Plus, I want to finish out this list of beers because we want to get to talking about bottom shelf bourbon and trying some of the. I'm sorry, Ian. What's the name of the bourbon we'll be trying today?
Ancient Age.
You know, that's going to get old for everybody listening, but not for us.
Not for me.
not for either of us. We're going to keep enjoying it. All right, we'll be back at Smoking and Toasting show number 202. We'll be drinking bottom shelf bourbon, so I'm glad we at least got to start with a really good beer. We'll be right back.
Nice.
Welcome back. Fun little band from Austin, Texas called Squint there. Check those boys out if you're in the Austin area. I've seen them live. They're a lot of fun. I don't, to be honest, don't completely know if they're still together. They gave me permission a long time ago to use that song on any of our shows. So that's a lot of fun. By the way, all of the music used here on Smoking and Toasting is used by permission. So that
People
keeps
we
us,
know.
people we know, and stuff we think is pretty cool, and it keeps us out of legal trouble in the copyright world.
I know. I had to suppress the urge earlier when we had the Fall Guy beer. I wanted to play the Fall Guy theme song in the background, and then I remembered.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. CBS television has actually, and I'm in agreement with some of what you'll hear about this in the story. I love their show, CBS Sunday Morning. I got introduced to it a while back. It's a kind of a 60 Minutes-ish news show, but it doesn't take itself quite so seriously as 60 Minutes often does. That's not a knock on 60 Minutes. It's just a more serious kind of show.
Right.
This one is a little more lighthearted. They do all these great features. They often do music features, which I enjoy because they're not just on the three biggest artists in the world. They'll do features on a really offbeat or upcoming or interesting band or artist, and they do just really interesting stuff. And what I particularly like about it is it doesn't become partisan. It doesn't become like trying to put out a particular worldview. It's just kind of reporting on cool stuff that they find. So it's good because you don't get worked up
Right.
one way or another, whether you agree or disagree. And on a Sunday morning, although I watch most of the clips on YouTube these days, but on a Sunday morning, that's the last thing you want. You know, you're not looking to get worked up. It's Sunday morning, for God's sake. You're looking for huevos rancheros. That's what you're looking for.
That's right.
On a Sunday morning. So anyway, on the 6th of September, on CBS News Sunday Morning, which is hosted by Jane Pauley, they showed a copy of Cigar Aficionado magazine. And on the screen with the
And they weren't trying to light it on fire
No.
because it's about cigars.
I know this is what I love about this story. They showed the issue of the May-June issue of Cigar Aficionado with the words "Best Damn Show on Television" emblazoned on the cover. And apparently, in the May-June issue, senior editor Gregory Mott, I think is who it is, Gregory Matola. Yeah, he did the cover story, and he talked about how much he loved CBS Sunday Morning and
Nice.
called it the best damn show on television. Actually called it the greatest show on television. A program, he said, that always seems to lift us up rather than tear things down. So the camera comes back to Jane Pauley, and she says, wow, we thank you for that. We certainly try. So I had to mention it because it was just this short segment about something that had to do with cigars on broadcast television that wasn't negative.
And they're not getting lambasted for
Right.
showing a Cigar Aficionado magazine?
Well, I'm sure they did. There'll be somebody out there who...
Yeah, somebody's going to be offended.
The people who tried to take down Nick Jonas, who, by the way, still seems to be doing fine.
Yeah.
So I guess...
the Nick Report.
The Nick Report, yes. That was fun. For a while, we had something to tell you about Nick Jonas every week, and then he kind of...
Did anyone ever try his beer?
No. Is it a beer, or did he...
I thought it was a beer, wasn't there?
We have to go back and look. We have to actually find that. Whatever it was. Was it... Maybe it was a vodka? Oh, that's right. They had the Jonas Brothers
that's right.
special edition of Coors Light. So yeah, I've tried.
Right,
Coors Light.
right, because we're gonna make we're gonna see if like when it stops being cold, the mustache grows in or the beard
That's
grows
exactly
in.
right. His facial hair starts to grow. That works
You
for
see
me.
facial hair. It's
I'm
not
so
cold
into
enough.
that whole idea. Back to our list for a beer that I must tell you I enjoy far more than I enjoy Coors Light, with or without the cold facial hair. Is Bell's Brewery's Hop Slam Ale, which comes in at number 30. It's hopped with 6 different varieties of hops, but they soften it with a touch of honey, and it's very fragrant, and it's about 10%. So this is they call it Hop
That's a
Slam
pretty
for
big
a
one,
reason.
yes.
It's a big beer for an IPA. Allagash Brewing in Maine is a great brewery, but I have
Yeah.
not had this particular one. Maybe you have. It's called River Trip. It's number 29 on
I
the
haven't had
list,
that.
and it's a light, accessible, refreshing, coriander-spiced Belgian-style session ale, which means it's a low-strength, well-balanced beer brewed, for drinkability.
Interesting.
It's about 4.8%. For me, coriander, you have to be careful. Like, it can be really good, but if you overdo it, it kind of takes over everything, and so it's one of those spices. But it sounds very interesting, and I want to try one of those. Hill Farmstead Brewery in Vermont comes in at number 28 with a farmhouse ale that may have the most interesting name on here. It's called Anne, like a woman's name. Anne.
Anne.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I like it. A fruity farmhouse ale produced by the breweries. They take their similarly named Anna ale and they age it, basically. It's brewed with 20% Vermont wildflower honey. And so they take this and they age it in French oak wine barrels, and that becomes Anne. It makes me think of, there was one of the Bishop's Barrel series that we had from St. Arnold that was that
Chardonnay
style.
barrels.
Oh
Yes,
my God,
yes.
it was so good. I need to go back and remember.
Yeah, I think
which
that was a
one
Belgian
was.
triple in Chardonnay barrels or something close to that. It was so good.
Alesmith Brewing in California comes in at
Oh, they're
27 with their Speedway Stout.
Yeah,
It's
buddy.
a Vietnamese coffee stout. It's the most popular. The Vietnamese coffee is the most popular of their series of Speedway Stouts. It's 12% and made with 4 varieties of Vietnamese coffee. When I think of Vietnamese coffee, I always think of the Rocket Fuel
Right.
made by Eighth Wonder, which is also a very good.
Yeah, which is available local, I'm
Yep.
sure, but not too
Yeah.
far out. But that's a
But
fantastic
that's a very,
beer, too, yeah.
very good coffee beer. Black Note Stout. So I'm noticing a trend here. Lots of stouts.
I see that.
On this list. Black Note Stout comes in at number 26, and it is from Bell's Brewery, also in Michigan. So far on our list, Bell's has had more entries than any other brewery. They describe it as creamy, malty, and aromatic. It's an Imperial Stout. Have we had Black Note? I don't think we have. We need to right that wrong here on the show very soon. They describe it as creamy, malty, and aromatic. It's an Imperial Stout that's complex and intense with a noticeable bourbon barrel character, but they say it remains easily drinkable. I am not familiar with this next brewery, but I love their name. They're from Vermont. It's called Lawson's Finest Liquids.
I
Isn't
don't
that
know
great?
that one either.
It's a beer called Sip of Sunshine, and it comes in at number 25. It's a hazy, bittersweet IPA, and it comes in a bomber. And I'm just looking at the picture, and it looks absolutely delicious. From Side Project Brewing in Missouri, we've had a number
we've
of
had
their
Side
beers.
Project.
Number 24 is the Fuzzy, a wild or sour ale made with wild yeast and or various bacteria. It's flowery and fruity, brewed in Missouri with white peaches and fermented and aged in Chardonnay barrels. That I'd really like to try that.
That sounds fun.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
The Speedway Stout Bourbon Barrel Aged from Ale Smith makes an appearance on the list. So 2 of their Speedway Stouts have made it before, and here's yet another stout. Brewed with locally sourced Ryan Brothers coffee and roasted barley and aged for up to a year in bourbon barrels. They say it's chocolate, vanilla, and coffee in the mouth with a hint of bourbon flavor. I'm glad we have a stout coming today because talking about all these stouts is making me kind of crave that stout flavor. At number 22, I have not had this, but I've heard a lot about it. It's Zombie Dust from Three Floyds Brewing in Indiana.
I have had that.
You have had Zombie Dust. Now, it's a pale ale. It has the Yakima Valley Citra hops. It is a bit resinous in the nose, they say, fruity and yeasty. Was it too much for you on the hoppiness?
It was nice to split a bottle with a buddy of mine when he came back from a trip, and he goes, hey, you got to come over, check this out. So we sat down and split a bottle. It was nice. I think it would be more along your style. You would definitely probably enjoy that more than me, but I did enjoy.
I do like those really
splitting that with them.
Sometimes I get a really hoppy beer and I just go crazy. I had one last week that I hadn't had in a long time, and it was the More Cowbell Double IPA from
that one is
Buffalo Bio.
Unapologetically resinous,
and it was so delicious. I was like, I don't know if Ian would go for this, but man, is it good. Oh man, but yes, unapologetically resinous is a good way to describe it. But I was in the mood for that, so it just totally hit me right, you know.
And I like that. I think that's an okay beer, but again, it's not something I reach for on the shelf. Like some of them are just.
I will say probably my favorite.
A beer or half a beer of it a lot of times is very much enough for me.
Probably my favorite from those guys is still that Copper Ale. The 16, I always forget what year it is.
1836.
1836.
Oh, that's an amazing beer.
Yeah, I just love that. There's one of the places I used to go see bands play a lot. That they always had it at the bar there, and I was just like, oh, that's just fun.
Yeah, it's
such a wonderful
They call
beer.
it a copper ale.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's got this wonderful chocolate note to it that's just incredible. At number 21, this is probably my favorite beer name so far on the list. It's from Funky Buddha Brewery in Florida. It's called Morning Wood. And it's
Nice.
They say it's definitely a beer for breakfast. It's 12% ABV. It's a porter that's bourbon barrel aged and flavored with coffee, bacon, and maple syrup.
I've had some Funky Buddha beers, and that sounds right along their lines right there.
At number 20 is Parabola, a Firestone Walker beer, and part of their Imperial Stout that
Haven't
comes in the
tried
big
that one.
boxes. Yeah, well, and I don't know what the word parabola means, but I know it's the name of a Tool song.
The parabola is the natural arc that you get, like if you throw something.
All right, so that's why it's the name of a Tool song. That fits perfectly.
Or like if you hang a string from 2 points or a chain from 2 points, that resulting shape of it is a parabola.
This beer from Firestone Walker, who in my mind can do just about no wrong, is 14% ABV. It's an Imperial Stout, and it comes with a rating on Beer Advocate of 4.65 out of 5.
That's pretty good.
We got to try this. This looks fantastic. I'll be on the lookout for some of that very soon. All right, number 19 is KBS, which is the Kentucky Breakfast Stout from Founders. It is also an Imperial Stout. You noticing a trend here? Rich and malty. It is what Founders calls a massive amount of coffee and chocolates. And they say that one critic on Beer Advocate wrote, "The look is epic, black like Texas crude oil."
Yeah.
And it is one of the darkest beers that I've ever seen. It is quite good. That's at 19. Toppling Goliath out of Iowa has number 18. It's the Assassin. It is also a dark beer. Plenty of malt on the nose, rich and chewy, with chocolate, raisin, dates, and caramel on the palate. 4.7 out of 5 on Beer Advocate.
Wow, we've had a few Toppling Goliath. We haven't had that, though.
I don't think we had the Assassin, so this is
did we?
I don't think we have.
Oh, okay.
So this is one we'll keep looking for. Lawson's Finest Liquids comes back on the list at number 17 with Double Sunshine. So the first one was the regular Sunshine. This is a double IPA, additional hops and malt. It's reminiscent of their Sip of Sunshine, they say, but it's maltier and still has a lot of that fruity character to it. The Lost Abbey in California, which we've had a number of their beers, and these guys are just beer artisans. I mean, they just make interesting and creative stuff. With a 4.66 out of 5 rating on Beer Advocate, it's their Golden State interpretation of the classic Belgian-style goose. called Duck Duck Goose. Love the name. Love the idea. It's a type of lambic, they say, fermented with wild yeast and bacteria, made by blending young and older barrel-aged beers. Duck Duck Goose. We'll have to check that out.
Geuss?
Actually, it's spelled Gooz, but
Oh.
the name of the actual name Goose, the actual style name, is spelled Gueuze.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, yeah. So I think that means something in a language that's not a very nice word too, but we won't go there. In Persian, I think. Number 15 is the Bourbon County Coffee Stout from Goose Island. Now, this is the coffee-dosed version of their Bourbon County Stout. You can go ahead and open that up and pour it if you like.
Oh,
It's
yeah?
just sitting there being kind.
See if we can get an epic beer opening sound.
Okay, here we go. Wow. That sounded like you were opening a beer on Game of Thrones. That's what that sounded like. Anyway, the Bourbon County Coffee Stout, it's the coffee-infused version of the Bourbon County Stout from Goose Island. It comes in at number 15, so they liked that even better than the regular one. At 14, from Bottle Logic in California, we've had a few of their beers on the show, the Fundamental Observation, a heady Imperial Stout, blended with Madagascar vanilla beans and aged in bourbon barrels, rich and dark. I would say in this list so far, we're up to number 13, and it's
very stout heavy.
It's very stout heavy. Yes, it is. At 13 is SR71. It's a 14% ABV, intense, complex Imperial Stout, syrupy and raisiny with notes of chocolate and marshmallow, and it comes to us again from Top One
It's
Delight.
also a spy plane that Sylvester Stallone flew at one point.
And it's also a band that a buddy of mine plays in
it-
that had like a number one
what was that
alternative
movie?
song in
Was
the
it Stallone in
in the
that movie?
90s. Yeah, I think so. It probably was. If not, it might as well have been. At number 12, from Maine Beer Company in Maine, is a beer that's simply called Dinner. It's a dry, fresh.
I love that.
It's a dry, fresh, clean double IPA, fruity and spicy with a resiny flavor and a lightly bitter finish. 4.66 out of 5 on Beer Advocate. So at number 11, this beer has topped many best of the year lists before. Comes in on this list at 11 from Russian River Brewing Company in California. It's Pliny the Elder with a 4.69 out of 5. It is an Imperial double IPA. Grassy hop character in the nose and plenty of malt and citrus on the palate. And the only one I've had of these is one you were able to get your hands on that was just probably a little too old. But we
past
liked
its
it
prime.
anyway, if you remember. I'm still anxious to get my hands on one of those. So we'll do it when we can. Toppling Goliath comes back at number 10 with Morning Delight. Guess what? It's an Imperial Stout. It's rich and well-balanced, brewed with coffee and maple syrup, medium rich and sweet, 12% ABV, 4.75 out of 5 on Beer Advocate. So we're starting to get some big ones here.
That beat out Pliny the Elder.
Yeah. Have you tasted the IPA yet?
I have.
Broke my own. I'm going to take in the nose on it while you tell me what you thought.
I think it smells good.
Mm-hmm.
I like the whole beginning of the palate. It's a little bit resinous and dry on the end for me.
The finish. Now, see, the front of it, and you're right, it's a very late finish where you get that more resiny hop vibe. The front of it is very citrusy and really delicious. Now, I like
There's a
this
malty
lot.
roundness to the front that is underlying that citrus too. I like most of that. I guess the diabolic part of this beer is if you don't keep drinking it, then you get stuck with that resinous aftertaste that I don't particularly care for.
Now, I know it says what hops they use on the can. Can you?
Mosaic, Comet, Chinook, Idaho 7, Cashmere, Eldorado.
I don't think I've had, or at least identified a beer that I've had with Idaho 7 hops
Coming
in it
in at
before.
6.5%.
I think it's delicious. But, again, this is a little more to my palate than yours. But I like the fact that they get the very hazy, citrusy thing and the very hoppy thing in the same beer. And they're so far separated from each other. The citrus notes and the haze and the malt being kind of in the front, and then the hoppiness being more on the finish and the retrohale.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, my only gripe about it is the linger aftertaste, and it's just not a me thing. So a lot of people enjoy that, or it doesn't bother them at all.
Now, at number 9 on our list, Ian, from USA Today, of the 40 most delicious
We're getting to the
craft
top
beer.
10.
Yes, we are. Halfway to number 1. At number 9 on the list is a beer that I know you like, and I'm actually a little surprised you do, because it is a very hoppy IPA. It's Two Hearted Ale from Bell's.
Oh, yeah.
And it always surprised me. Now I know you have a soft spot for Bell's Brewery, but it always surprises me a little bit how much you like
But that's
that
actually
beer because
one
of the
the
hoppiness.
reasons that I have that soft spot for Bell's Brewing is because I found that beer, and
Because
that's
of
one
Two
of the
Hearted?
best IPAs I think I've ever had.
Well, it's so far it's the highest
They're-
one on the
so
on
I
the
don't,
list.
don't misunderstand me. I don't hate IPAs. I just hate ones that are unnecessarily resinous, and I dislike ones that leave too much of a bitterness in the palate.
You know what's good about that?
That you can have a lot
Is
more
it
of this
leaves
beer.
more of the broke my own for me. Yes.
But there are certain IPAs that are so well crafted, and well balanced, and to my palate, they just are the top of the rock. And that Two Hearted IPA, and I can name a few others that are amazing. The Dogfish Head 90 minute.
Oh man, what a beer!
I love Dogfish Head 120 minute, but that might be a different thing too.
It is.
Like,
Yeah,
that's,
it's almost a category unto itself.
like-
I would say, yeah. But you like a number of Stone's beers, for
I
example,
do,
that are
I do,
that are
but-
extremely hoppy.
yes, and because though the way the hops finish in those, they don't leave that. Yeah, that green resiny kind of feel in my mouth. I just don't. There's something about that I just don't dig being stuck with, and it darn sure doesn't go with a cigar.
No, and I will admit that as a fan of IPAs and a fan of cigars, they're two things that I kind of have to keep separate in my life, for most of them anyway. At number 8, Treehouse Brewing out of Massachusetts. We've had a number of their beers, but I don't think we've had King Julius. It's a double New England IPA, a beefier sibling to the Julius IPA, with plenty of hops and a profusion of tropical fruit flavors. From Perennial, I can say that word. Perennial Artisan Ales in Missouri comes number 7 with a 4.79 out of 5 rating.
That's
We're really
big.
getting up there.
I just want to point out, I'm a little surprised that we've gotten this far up, and especially how stout heavy this is, that Founders hasn't been on there.
Well, no, we had the Founders. We had their the KBC.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
I'm
that was
sorry.
on the list.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah. So, but at number 7, from Perennial Artisan Ales, with a 4.79 out of 5, is the Barrel Aged Abraxas. And the only thing I know about Abraxas is that's the name of a Santana album.
Abraxas is like a religious tome.
Oh,
or-
so you're really laying down the knowledge today. I appreciate that about you.
Also, it's an amazing album, and it was also the debut of the Mesa Boogie amplifier with cascading tubes to create the overall saturation that allowed him to get the kind of sustain that he got, especially on Europa.
Carlos Santana in my personal top 5 favorite guitar
By the
players
way,
of all time.
it was called Mesa Engineering. The amp company was called Mesa Engineering, and they called it the amp the Boogie because when Carlos Santana came over and tried it out, he goes, "Man, these amps really boogie,"
And that's how it got
and
its
then it
name.
became the Mesa / Boogie.
The Perennial Artisan Ales Barrel Aged Abraxas, they describe as very dark and viscous, a spicy, seasonal Imperial Stout brewed with cinnamon sticks, ancho chilies, cacao nibs, and vanilla beans, and aged for a year in Rittenhouse rye barrels.
Wow.
So that does sound like that's either going to be amazing or not. Like,
Right.
with that combination, I have a feeling coming in at number 7 here, it's amazing. We'll have to be on the lookout.
I'm
for
trying to imagine how dry the finish on that would be.
I can't even really imagine what it would taste like with all those different
Right.
things in. But it's something I definitely want to try. Barrel Aged Abraxas at number 7. You mentioned that you thought Founders should be more represented, so you should be happy with entry number 6. It's the CBS, the Canadian Breakfast Stout.
Ah, yeah.
From Founders. Dark, smooth, sweet, and oaky, brewed with what its makers call a blend of coffees and imported chocolates, and aged in bourbon barrels that had previously held Michigan maple syrup.
Nice.
So that's how
Yes.
they get this, and that's how they got a 4.7 out of 5
Yeah.
From Beer
Have
Advocate.
we've had that, right?
Yes,
I mean,
we
I
have.
know I've had that. I couldn't remember
Yes,
if we had it on
We've
here.
had it on the show, as I
Delicious.
recall. And well, what? No, I don't think we have. Let's do it next week. I'm just making
I might
that
have one in my. I might have one.
up. We may have to
I know
do
I
that.
got KBS, a couple years of KBS in my fridge.
Cigar City Brewing in Florida makes an appearance on the list. At number 5, we're into the top 5 now. It's Hanapu's Imperial Stout. It's double barrel aged. It ranks a 4.79 out of 5 on Beer Advocate. Rich, thick black stout aged in rum and apple brandy barrels with cacao nibs, ancho and pasilla chiles, cinnamon and Madagascar vanilla beans, adding up to an ABV of 11%. So we'll have to try some of this.
That's like 0.5% per syllable there for the name of it.
That's pretty good. That's at number 5. At 4 is Pliny the Younger from Russian River. So it kind of leapfrogs Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Elder is a double IPA. This one is a triple. Touch of smoothing sweetness, made with 3 times the usual ration of hops, 4.75 out of 5, coming in on the list at number 4 from Russian River. At number 3, from Three Floyds Brewing in Indiana, and I'm so glad we've had a chance to try some of their beers, although I don't think we've had this one. It's the BBADL, Bourbon Barrel Aged Dark Lord Imperial Stout. That just sounds delicious.
I feel like we've done the Dark Lord
Did
Imperial
we do the Dark
Stout,
Lord? 15% IPA, or ABV rather, so thick that it's almost chewy. An aroma that's part vintage port, part molasses. So it says here there's a number of Dark Lord variations. So I think we've probably had one of them.
We've had a variation of that.
They are generally sold at the brewery only on one day each year. Bad news this year, it was June 30th, so you missed it.
Maybe we didn't have one. I don't know.
But you know what? I think we may have still gotten our hands on one at some point. You can check, by the way, darklordday.com for next year's Dark Lord date release from Three Floyds Brewing, and it comes in at number 3. At number 2, from The Alchemist in Vermont, it's Heady Topper. We've heard a lot about this beer. It's a double IPA, sold in cans, but they say it's bitter and well-balanced and full of floral, citrusy, and piney flavors. It's considered, as one Beer Advocate reviewer put it, the granddaddy that today's IPAs were born from. The Beer Advocate rating on it at number 2 on the list is 4.79 out of 5. So, yeah, that's one to look forward to. A stout from Toppling Goliath tops the list, Ian. It's the Kentucky Brunch Stout, ranked number 1 on the most recent Beer Advocate listing of America's top 250 beers with an almost perfect score. It's a 4.9 out of 5.
Wow.
Can you imagine how good a beer has to be rated by all the people that are going to go on Beer Advocate and rate it, and nobody rates it low enough to pull the number down any lower than 4.9 out of 5. That's huge.
Yeah, that's big.
That really is. They describe it as thick, dark, sweet, complex, smooth, and memorable, containing flavors of chocolate, coffee, maple syrup, bourbon, figs, toffee, and vanilla, to what its many fans consider a transcendent effect.
A transcendent
Put this
effect.
on the list. We got to get some Kentucky Brunch Stout.
Like, you drink that, you will actually start to understand, like, Dio lyrics.
That's
Ronnie
because
James
nobody
Dio
really
lyrics.
understands Dio lyrics, except maybe if you've had yourself some Kentucky Brunch Stout from Toppling Goliath. So a very interesting list, and there were a lot of IPAs on it, but wow, the stouts.
Yeah,
heavily
like that was a
represented here.
very stout heavy list. I'm super
Very
surprised.
heavily represented. So we'll be getting to a stout in our final segment, but when we come back next, we're going to talk about bottom shelf bourbons, and I have a list of ones that they tried in a blind taste test, and this one was one of the ones that they seemed to like, and we'll be having it in our next segment. It is
Ancient Age.
I'll just say it again. That's not going to get old for me throughout the entire show. I don't know why. I don't know why that tickles me like that. But clearly I'm not the only one. So we'll be back to try that and tell you what we think. It is a $12 bottle of whiskey. I don't think we've ever done anything quite that cheap on the show before.
True.
So we'll be looking forward to it. It's coming up next on Smoking and Toasting. welcome back. It is Smoking and Toastin', the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com, and I just want to mention that these guys are stepping up to be a sponsor of the show, so we would ask that you go check out their shirts, and if you see something you like, buy it. They're reasonably priced, and they're great shirts for cigar lovers, and some of them even have things on them that you've heard on the show before.
Helping them out actually helps us out.
That's what we're talking about.
Helps us bring this amazing content to you.
Yeah, that's right. We even have special effects on the show now because here in a moment, Ian will be opening up this bottle of
Ancient Age.
Yep, a $12 bottle of whiskey, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be trying it. It's made by the folks who make Buffalo Trace, so they got to have something going on,
Why
right?
is it so fun?
I don't know. I wish I could tell you, but it is.
I can't stop giggling.
So one of the reasons I brought in the Ancient Age today as one of our things to taste is because I found a very interesting article on Paste.com, which is a cool site to go to for music and TV reviews and different things. And they occasionally have something talking about beers or liquors. And they recently released an article by Jim Varell about 13 of the best bottom shelf cheap bourbons blind tasted and ranked. So I thought we'd go through these real quick because Ancient Age was one of them. And so that's the reason I thought we would sample it today. So here's the rules of their blind tasting. A strict price limit.
I need a sound effect moment.
Okay. Well, I will say that the reverb definitely helped that because we don't have many drinks here on the show that get opened with a plastic
Hey,
breakaway bottle top.
Congratulations to them for keeping up with the times. Like, who uses a cork anymore?
Right.
A nice screw top bottle is very modern.
Exactly.
And that tells me that this is a modern, forward-thinking company.
It also tells me that it costs $12. But there's that.
I was trying to put a good spin on it.
I know, and I appreciate it. The rules and procedure for this blind taste test, a strict price limit of $15 or less for a 750 milliliter bottle of whiskey. Some of the bottles they used were merely pints, but every brand on the list was available for $15 or less on Total Wine at the time of the purchase for the 750 milliliter bottle.
It doesn't smell bad.
They say that the hard $15 cutoff did mean that certain mid-shelf brands like Old Forester, which you mentioned, or the Four Roses yellow label missed the tasting as they can no longer be reliably had for under $15. Likewise, former bottom shelf contenders like Old Fitzgerald or Heaven Hill White Label are no longer being manufactured, so they weren't considered. All in all the members of the fields are, they say, firmly in what they call the plastic cap club. So that totally works. At 13, Kentucky Gentleman from Barton 1792 Distillery. It's priced at $8.49. That came in at number 13. At number 12, distilled by Heaven Hill for Luxco, is Rebel Yell. Have you ever had any Rebel Yell?
Yes.
Yeah? What's your
I'm not a fan.
Not a fan. Okay.
As a matter of fact, Rebel Yell has a funny story. A buddy of mine bought a bottle of it one point in time, and we sat around and drank it. And while we were drinking it, I had to explain to him. Well, he explained to me it wasn't that bad. I said, not bad is also a way of saying not good, because you're not saying it's good.
That's right. Not bad.
And I said, they don't call this yummy tummy.
I like that. I like that.
It's called rock gut, not yummy tummy.
That might be good with a little reverb on it.
They don't call this yummy tummy.
Yeah, see that? This can work in a variety of ways. I know right now there's people listening to the show going, please do not make this a trend. At number 11, 10 High from the Barton 1792 Distillery.
I have had that.
10 High is $6.99 a bottle.
Yes, and that also is not good.
Okay.
Like, at least from the many years ago when I tried it.
We're climbing the list here. We're at number 10 from Brown Forman. It's Early Times, $8.49 a bottle. Have you had Early Times?
Early Times is tolerable.
All right. How about Old Crow from Jim Beam and the Beam Suntory Distillery at $8.99 a bottle?
I feel like I've had Old Crow, but I don't remember one way or the other about that.
Okay. Ancient Age comes in at number 8. Or, as we like to say here on the show, number 8 would be
Ancient Age.
Yeah, it's from Buffalo Trace.
Have you tried it yet?
It's $11.99. No, I haven't. I have taken in a little of the nose, so maybe this would be a good point to tell me what you're getting.
So on the nose, it's got a sweetness to it and
Yeah.
a little kind of young green kind of underripe kind of smell to it. It's not bad. It's drinkable.
The article makes an interesting note about Ancient Age, which, again, comes in at number 8. It says, this is about the point in the blind tasting where we ascend from okay in a pinch to decent bourbon for the price. And I would kind of agree with that. Like, this is really not bad. A little sweet, a little green, as you said.
Yeah.
But not unpleasant at all,
Yeah.
actually.
No, it's drinkable.
Yeah. I wonder what this would be like in a Manhattan or
It has
as a mixture.
very unsophisticated heat that comes back.
That's an interesting way for you to say that. So describe what you mean by that. It's just a little harsh? Is that what you're getting at?
It's got a whiskey hug that is vibrant, to say the least. It's enthusiastic. Mm-hmm. The whiskey hug is
It's even more awkward than usual.
yes. It's more awkward.
That's a good way to put it.
It's one of those hugs that should have ended, but
But they keep
it
hugging.
went a little bit too long.
I know what you're talking about.
Like, and now you're like, are we friends or are we? What's
And
happening
you're right, because
here,
that's exactly what I'm getting right now after a sip of this. But I will say it probably is better than I was expecting it to be. And so now for $12.99 a bottle, if you double that price, you can have a bottle of Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
What are you getting for twice the money, in your opinion? Totally worth it? Totally worth taking
all
the
of
leap?
those things that we just said
Yeah,
are not there.
in the Buffalo Trace.
And the Buffalo Trace, the Buffalo Trace is, especially in its price point, one of the more outstanding whiskeys I even know of.
Mm-hmm.
It is that good. It has that reputation because it actually is that good, I think. Do I think it's the best whiskey in the world? Well, it's pretty close for that
for
price
the price,
point.
yeah, for the price.
But understand too, like I've had whiskeys that cost almost double what Buffalo Trace costs. I don't like as much.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some that cost double that I think are worth double it.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
but double this between Ancient Age and Buffalo Trace. Oh, Buffalo! I'd go Weller even.
Yeah.
But that's $18, so that's outside of the bottom shelf price point you're talking about here. Either one of those, I think, is a more pleasant aftertaste, a little better, a less blunt sweetness, and a less enthusiastic whiskey hug. But again, this is drinkable.
I like your description of enthusiastic. That's exactly right for the whiskey hug. This stuff is made from the Buffalo Trace Mash Bill number 2, which has a bit more rye in the grist compared with Mash Bill number 1. This is the same mash bill that they use for Blanton's and Elmer T. Lee. But this stuff isn't that. It's at least they say in the article a legitimate straight bourbon, though, which means it can claim 2 years of age. They describe the palate effects of this as being on the lighter side, some minty herbality, rye bread, pepper, light cinnamon, and honeyed sweetness. It's milder than some of the others and a tad on the watery side, they say here on Paste. But other than a slightly sour twang of green oak, which both of us noticed.
Okay, so that's both of us. We're
There's no
nailing
big
that.
detractions. If you handed this to a friend, they'd say something like, yep, that's a young, cheap bourbon, but they wouldn't have any other reason to complain.
Yeah, and the bottle itself says the Ancient Age Distilling Company has a rich history, first established at the old Leestown settlement, an early transportation settlement center in Frontier, Kentucky. Clear limestone water and accessible trade routes made for the area perfect for making whiskey. From the very first barrel, Ancient Age was known for its fine, smooth, mellow whiskey.
I do find it interesting that they take a whiskey that is a little young tasting, has that sour, tang, as they describe here, of green oak, and they describe it as Ancient Age. So, it just seems like a funny juxtaposition there. But hey, it's not bad. In a pinch, if I was someplace where they had nothing interesting,
I
would pull this off the bar
I've been
for sure.
camping where the closest liquor store, this is about the best stuff that they'll have,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. Now I know. Like I've never reached for this before, but at least now I know that
What's interesting though sometimes about those little offbeat, middle of nowhere liquor stores is sometimes that's about the best they have, and sometimes you walk in and they got a bottle of Blanton's on the shelf, which you like haven't seen anybody have in stock in several years. Or something.
Yeah, the other thing you'll see though sometimes in those shops is they'll think they have something, so they'll have like a bottle of Basil Hayden's, but they'll have it marked to like $65.
Yeah, right.
Like no.
No.
I mean, I like Basil Hayden, it's fine, but
For $13.99, you can get the Jim Beam White Label, which comes in at number 7 on our list of cheap bourbons. Have you had that?
meh.
Yeah. Henry McKenna Straight Bourbon is number 6. It's made by Heaven Hill. It's $14.29, just squeaking in under the $15
I've had that.
price limit.
Limit. I think I probably like this better than the Henry McKenna.
Old Granddad, 80 proof at number 5.
Ain't nothing wrong with Old Granddad.
Made by Jim Beam. It's $14.99, so it barely makes the cut.
It has the same detractors that this has. It has that green, young astringency to it, and then the whiskey hug is again enthusiastic.
Very enthusiastic. At number 4, Zachariah Harris Kentucky Straight Bourbon,
Don't know that.
made by Barton 1792. It's $8.99. So I'd say go check some out, but maybe not. Evan Williams Bottled in Bond from Heaven Hill is $13.99. It's 100 proof, and it's number 3 on the list. Have you
I
had?
don't think I've had that.
Yeah. It's functioned, they say, in the recent years like the opposite of Old Granddad, in the sense that you can scarcely believe you can still regularly find not only the flagship Evan Williams Black Label, but the 100 proof White Label for less than $15. So it's one you might be able to find. At number 2, Benchmark Old Number 8. Also distilled by Buffalo
I've
Trace.
seen it. I don't think I've ever had
It's
that one either.
$8.49, and here's how they compare this one to Ancient Age. They say, whereas the earlier likes of Ancient Age were made from the higher rye Buffalo Trace Number 2 mash bill, Old Number 8, Benchmark Old Number 8 is made from the unusually low rye Buffalo Trace Number 1 mash bill, which is purported to be less than 10% rye, but no one really knows for sure. Regardless, it's the same mash trace as regular Buffalo Trace, as well as Stagg and E.H. Taylor, and you can expect, they say, a sweeter and richer distillate as a result of having more corn and barley in the mash. And indeed, they say that's exactly what Benchmark delivers, and at a pretty serious value. So that's number 2 at $8.49, suggested retail price. For number 1, from Barton 1792 Distillery, it's the Very Old Barton, coming in at $12.99. It's 90 proof. And I'm taking from your look on your face, you have not tried
I've
the
never
Very
tried
old,
that, no.
Old Barton. They say the oddest thing about the Very Old Barton line doesn't have anything to do with age, although the whiskey purists are still displeased. They say that the brand was stripped of its 6-year age statement a couple of months ago. But the fact that it's offered in so many different proofs, it comes in 80, 86, 90, and 100. And they say, really? An 86 and a 90? But regardless of the reason, all of them can be found for less than $15. And as they quickly found out, they say, this is the real deal. It's made from a classic bourbon mash bill that includes about 15% rye, aged for 4 to 6 years. And make no mistake, they say, in a field full of 2-year whiskeys on the bottom shelf, you can definitely feel the extra age that comes with this one. So there's your bourbons on the list. Are you enjoying the Ancient Age at all, Ian, or is it starting to get on your nerves?
No, it's drinkable. Like I said, that green note, it's there, but I don't. It's not putting me off too much. Like, I'm kind of enjoying it.
You know what's kind of interesting about this to me is it makes me. I'm enjoying it too, but it makes me crave a better one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I like this taste, but I'd really like to get some of that refinement that you can get from an Angel's Envy or
No, but I think honestly, like a bottle like this is fine for like a campfire.
right.
or-
When
or
you're in
s-
that, you're just like hanging out, smoking a cigar, in a less than refined environment, maybe.
Yeah, the only thing that really scares me about a whiskey like this, and I've had some cheap whiskeys before, but that young, that green, they called it the green oak kind of flavor, that makes for a very bad hangover.
I was just about to ask, is it more hangover inducing, you think?
Yeah, that makes for like a hearty hangover.
I will remember that and not consume too much of the ancient age
But
this afternoon. But
I gotta say, for you paid $12 for this
12
bottle?
bucks, yeah.
Shoot, that's drinkable.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to up the ante a little bit because we're going to be headed back to beer, and I'm very excited to present to you, Ian, from Abnormal Beer Company, their Unification Imperial Stout. I'm totally in the mood for some stout after reading about all those stouts on the list. So, did you want to say something?
Unification Imperial Stout.
That kind of works for that, too, doesn't it? Yeah, it really does. All right, we'll be back with that. Plus, drinking news is on the way as we round out episode number 202 of Smokin' and Toastin', craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Welcome back. It is Smokin' and Toastin'. This is the little program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. Because cigars. Yeah. A perfect place to go to get gifts. Holiday season's not that far away. It's a great place to get gifts for the cigar lovers you know, or to suggest to people to get gifts for you, Ian.
If I only knew somebody that had a birthday coming up.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's all I'm talking about. Little double XL worked great for me.
Noted.
Okay. So anyway, we want to thank them for being a sponsor of the show and want to encourage you to go and check them out and order a shirt or two. A lot going on the show this week, but it was kind of nice to get back to. As much as I love having our guests on the show, it was kind of nice to get back to a show where we could just do a lot of tasting and taste some cheap whiskey, and then for the last segment here, I'm very excited about this Imperial Stout because I got in a huge Imperial Stout mood after describing all those Imperial Stouts from that beer list. So you opening that bad boy up? Ooh, that really works for the cap thing. So this one comes in a bomber, and while Ian pours it, let me just bring you one of our favorite segments on the program. We call it Drinking News. Now it's time for Drinking News. And I know you're working on the theme song, so I'm not even going to bug you about it.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I was
right?
supposed to have it ready this week, and I did not. But let's talk about it for next week.
Well, Drinking News is a segment on the program that we started a while back that is always a story that sometimes it's about drinking, sometimes it's not. But it's always a story that might be more interesting or fun to hear while you are drinking. And today's is not about drinking, but hopefully it falls for you into that second category. Sirahop Muscaret was rushed to the hospital last week after a snake bit his penis while he was sitting on the toilet.
I'm like... Say, what? There has to be a circumstance here.
Sirahop was a university student. He went to the loo, as they say in Britain, on Tuesday evening last week when he felt a sudden searing pain in his privates. He looked down and saw a python with its jaws clamped around the tip of his member.
That is a hell of a male enhancement right there.
It quickly let go. There was blood everywhere. The poor guy's 18 years old. He yelled in terror, ran out of the bathroom with his pants around his ankles. He lives in central Thailand, about 20 kilometers north of Bangkok. His panic-stricken mother calmed him down, and then paramedics came and rushed him to nearby Bang Yai Hospital for treatment. Doctors gave him 3 stitches. Oh, ouch. I mean, the snake bite's bad enough, but now 3 stitches? And they treated the wound with antibiotic wash to kill any bacteria from the... Okay, there's the picture, Ian, if you want to see. It's not a picture of the penis. It's a picture of the python that apparently bit poor Sirahop. It was only a small snake, he said, but the bite was so strong. I hope... This is a sentence that you hope you never have to utter in your life. I hope that my penis can recover. Animal handlers arrived at the home and began searching for the snake, which was still coiled up in the toilet bowl. They used snake catching equipment to snare the python.
It just randomly
crawled
4
into
feet
the
long.
toilet
bowl,
or came up through the plumbing. Perhaps that has been known to happen. Anyway, I guess the moral of today's story is always look down before you go.
Look before you leap. Yes,
look before you leap. So
that's terrifying.
It is terrifying, and I almost didn't share that, but I wasn't finding a lot of more lighthearted drinking news today, so I thought, okay,
penis stitches.
Stitches. We'll go for it.
If he gets excited, do those 3 stitches become 6?
Oh, I don't even want to know about that. I don't even want to know. So after that little bite of reality, let's go to something more pleasant and see if we can't try out some Imperial Stout. Did we get some interesting comments there?
Blake just put they bite off your Johnson.
Yeah. All right, Imperial Stout from Abnormal Brewing.
Smells amazing.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting, I think, because this beer this brewery rather has quite a reputation for being people who are a little left of center. That's why they call it abnormal. A little left of center when it comes to the things that they choose to brew. So, Unification Imperial Stout.
We
what
love
does it tell
our
us?
abnormal ambassadors like family and the rest of you too, but for this particular masterpiece, we let our extended ambassador family call the shots for everyone to enjoy. Through a suggestion pool narrowed down to a list to vote on, we finally had a winner. Imperial Stout with cocoa nibs, coconut, and hazelnuts. We use the base to our barrel-aged stouts for the canvas, and then utilize our kitchen to prep the rest. Cacao nibs and half the coconut got toasted while we roasted some chopped hazelnuts, and then the remainder of the coconuts go in fresh. The result is a sweet, nutty chocolate candy bar in liquid form. Enjoy fresh. I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
There's a drip that is going down the side of this bottle, and it's very difficult for me not to just lick that off the bottle.
I understand. Well, I'm glad that you read that because I could taste the coconut, kind of the toasty coconut flavor, but I was trying to like identify this one flavor, and it's most definitely the toasted
fresh
hazelnuts.
Oh, the hazelnut. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but the fresh coconut's coming through as well. Like you can taste the toasted, but the fresh coconut hits more towards the front of the tongue. It's a little more bitter, a little more astringent, and it's right there. So it's really interesting.
This is quite delicious. I mean, I could have seen this making the list of the 30 delicious beers.
Has a quote on here attributed to Michael J. Fox: "Family is not an important thing; it is everything." And this is 10.7% by volume. So.
They were talking in the label stuff that you read there. They were talking about their abnormal tasting family, I guess. So maybe that's where the Michael J. Fox quote comes into play.
Or abnormal ambassadors.
Abnormal ambassadors like family. Yeah, okay, that's what I remembered.
Well, this is absolutely delightful.
So on the, we've talked about a lot of really, big time Imperial Stouts that were on that list, or stouts in general. Where would you put this among the stouts that you've tasted? This one of the better ones?
This is definitely outstanding. This is 4.5 or up, I'd say, on the Beer Advocate.
I would agree.
If it was my choice,
Right. I would rate this very high. The thing I like about it is it's got all these different flavors working on you, but it doesn't give in to any one of them too wholeheartedly. None of the flavors that you talked about here really dominate. They all just kind of dance on your tongue.
No, but they're all able to be kind of picked out in there as well. The one of the nice things about it is there's that oak astringency on the end finishes everything off and really doesn't leave it sickly sweet in your mouth at all. It leaves it with a little snap of bitter astringency that just makes you want to grab that next sip.
One of the things about the stout that we've had on the show, we've had some that are really coffee. Like the coffee just dominates. I've had some of those recently, and they've been very good. The the Black is Beautiful stout that we had a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it was just really a coffee stout. Then we've had those that are more boozy, that have more of that, that barrel-aged vibe, and that seems to dominate.
Taste,
This has both of those flavors, but it seems so well balanced with all the other things that
Have you ever had You know how some of the candy bar companies will make the same candy that you've had for years, but they'll do it with dark chocolate? Mm-hmm. This is a Mounds with dark chocolate.
All right, so here's what I'm going to tell you about dark chocolate. There's a little Hershey's. It's not a Hershey's Kiss. It's a little kind of a rectangular-shaped Hershey's dark chocolate with almonds.
Oh, yeah.
And what it is it's super awesome dark chocolate, but it's got 2 little almonds in it. It's a small piece of candy, maybe a little bigger than a quarter, but it's rectangular. What's so great about it is, first of all, the dark chocolate, which is amazing, but secondly, because you can take one bite of it and it'll have an almond in it, but there'll still be an almond in your second bite. So many of those things, if you take one bite, if you get the almond,
that's it.
Then your second bite's all chocolate. Or you get a bite that's all chocolate, and then there'll be almond in the second. This one allows you to have 2 bites, all almond.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I don't know why I just
if you're like me,
that, but it's
like
great.
sometimes you have to play with candy, so you leave it in your mouth and you let it melt away until all you have is the almond. Yeah.
I am digging it. Well, I thought that this was interesting. The whole article about the bottom shelf bourbon. Often we'll, come in here and we'll be trying some whiskeys that are like in the much more expensive range. And I remember we had one on not too long ago. It was about $100 bottle, and I'm thinking, I wonder how many people, no matter how great we may tell them it is, would actually go out and drop $100 on a bottle of bourbon.
Yeah, $100 is a little hard to justify.
It really is.
If you're not a big fan of bourbon in the first place, if you're not predisposed to spend $100 on bourbon, it's real hard to do that.
Right.
The nice thing about bourbon, though, is you get great bourbon across every price range.
That really is true. And quite frankly, this was the Ancient Age even was not bad when you consider that it's $12. I mean, and I don't say not bad as in not good. It was pretty good, considering that it was only $13.
Yeah, I would tell you, if this cost twice as much,
Yep.
I'd raise an eyebrow.
Yes, I agree totally. If it cost twice as much, it'd be competing with
But
Buffalo
I've had
Trace.
stuff that costs twice as much that has that green in it and everything else, and it's and even more, as a matter of fact. Now I've got one stuck in my head. I'm not going to call anybody out on it, but this, for what it is, not bad.
As we close out the show, then, let me give you, in the slightly higher price range area, let me give you some of the bourbons that came in. If I can get the ad to go away there. Thank you. Let me give you some of the bourbons that came in on this list of from Forbes, the best bargains in bourbon whiskey. And here they talk about things that are still relatively inexpensive, but probably a little more expensive than the ones that we mentioned in the bottom shelf list earlier. They talk about Old Tub, bottled in bond, at $21. It's an unfiltered, 100-proof throwback to Jim Beam's historical precursor. They talk about the standard bottle of Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
It comes in at $22. It's $22 pretty well spent, quite frankly. Those that enjoy the characteristics of Pappy Van Winkle and aren't, just falling prey to the hype, they say will find a lot to appreciate in a bottle of just regular old $22 Maker's Mark. Larceny Wheated Bourbon Whiskey at $20. It's 92 proof. They say it's quite good. They mentioned the Rebel Yell 100 proof. We talked about the lower proof Rebel Yell before. The 100 proof is a $20 bottle, and they listed on here. I don't know if that's, you're still giving me that look like not Rebel Yell.
Rebel Yell has scarred me slightly.
Okay, I understand. I have some similar experiences in other areas. Jim Beam Black Extra Aged at $22 makes their list, and unless I missed part of the list, that may be it. So these are ones that are really, I think, all in the kind of $20 price range that they say
what would
are
you
the
say
best
if you were
bargains.
going to pick 5 whiskeys between $20 and $30? What would they be?
Buffalo Trace for sure.
100%.
Isn't there a Heaven Hill that's in that price range, or am I
Not
thinking
sure.
wrong?
Not sure.
Am I thinking wrong? Wow. A bottle of that Fistful of Bourbon
Yeah.
We've had that on the show before. That I thought, it wasn't my favorite bourbon ever, but wow, for the price, it was really really tough to beat. Really tough to beat. Probably Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
The regular one. Beyond that, I have to start really almost looking at a shelf.
How much is a standard
to
Knob Creek? That's in the 30s, isn't it?
I think it's in the 30s.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I like the Knob Creek too.
Yeah. What about you?
Old
Buffalo Trace?
Forester.
Old Forester.
Old
Yep.
Forester,
yep.
definitely.
For sure. I can answer this question easier if we're talking tequila or rum.
Right.
Because I just know more about the brands and stuff there. With bourbon and with whiskey, I really just know.
It's
what
also
I've tried.
easier to answer if I said 25 to 35.
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden, you open up a whole other door.
Because what's funny is there's a sweet spot in whiskey between, say, $25 and $40.
Absolutely. If
opens
I
up
can
a
buy a
whole
$38 bottle, we're talking about a completely different list of things here. Although I think Buffalo Trace would still make that list. That's just a very
Buffalo Trace,
good
definitely.
whiskey.
Eagle Rare.
Eagle Rare, thank you. That's the one I was trying to think of.
Eagle Rare would make that list.
Yeah.
Monkey Shoulder.
Oh, yeah. The very first bottle of spirits that we had on this show, episode number 1, you brought in a bottle of Monkey Shoulder. I remember
Yeah, that was a gift from a friend of mine named Chappie.
That was very good. That was very good. And what a trip it's been. 202 episodes, Ian. Can you believe it?
Halfway to 300.
Nobody has stepped in to try to stop us. I just say it now because I know it pisses that guy off. Yeah, like he makes it to the end of our shows.
That guy has totally
anyway.
given up on us.
Yeah, like he would still be here at the end of show number 202. Well, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but we do want to very much thank our special guest from last week's show. It was a very fun show to do.
Chris Morris. So fun.
Yeah, he was so fun.
Where did he say he was working again?
He's working at the place in Montrose. The name is.
I'm blanking on
slipping
it.
my mind.
Last
I
minute.
know it.
I
Just for some reason I can't.
It for him, but
I can't call it up. But it starts with a B. I'll think of it. All right. Sorry, Chris. We're
totally dropping
we
the
owe
ball
you
on
a
that
plug. We're dropping the ball on that. Kauba. Okay. You know what? We'll find it out. We'll give him a shout at the top of next week's show, just to make up for our ignorance here on this one. I will mention though that that I went back and looked at his business card this week that I got from him a while back. So God knows who he was working for then.
Oh yeah.
But he described himself as a mixologist, sommelier, and artisan.
Nice.
Which I thought, that's pretty good. If you can get away with calling yourself an artisan, that's pretty good. And I think he qualifies.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I really do.
And just to follow up on that, I made the same martini that I always make, but I did it stirred this time.
Oh, and what did you think?
It's much more rich. It's much more delicious.
Interesting. Okay.
Also,
I
found that the way with the barrel-aged gin, the barrel-rested gin, sorry, I think there's a...
Barrel rested. Yeah, you can't say aged when it comes to
right. The barrel rested gin. The way that it interacts with the olives and the olive juice, which I used a little bit of, was much more pleasant.
Last question before we go for you. What type of olives do you use? Not necessarily brand, but what type of olives? Do you use a green olive with a pimento? Do you use an olive? I've made them with blue cheese in them, which I kind of like. But what do you use?
So olives with a pimento are just fine, and they go with almost any gin or botanical that you put in there. That pimento cheese really works with any of those. When you get to blue cheese, that can be
works with vodka
flavor that doesn't really do gin very well.
Okay, I could see that because the botanicals.
And I love blue cheese olives.
Yeah,
that's delicious. But I can see that being more of a vodka martini thing. So for me, I use generally a green olive with a pimento in there, and a lot of times I just use the juice that's with whatever olive I have. Sometimes I have a bottle of olive juice that I got from Specs or whatever, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I use that olive juice from Specs the same way, but my favorite martinis that I make actually use the juice from the jar of the olives
I've
themselves.
found when you buy the olive juice by itself and use it, it's a little too salty sometimes.
Can be, yeah.
And to me, you just have to be a little less spiced. But the problem is if you put a little less in there, you get a little less of the olive flavor, but a little too much is a little too salty.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of a balancing. So I generally just pour a little out of the jar from the olives I got.
Well, all of our talk about stouts earlier made me really crave a stout. Now this is making me crave a martini. So
Well, we got the rest of the day, brother.
Perhaps we should unconvene. What is it? You convene when you start. What do you do? Is it a conscious uncoupling? Is that what
Deconvene?
I don't know. But
Unconvene?
do want to mention, by the way, coming up in just a couple of weeks, the return of Jared Himstedt to the show. He is from Balcones.
Yes.
He was so interesting when we had him on the show before, and then they've had so much going on with Balcones since we had him on. Plus, they just make fantastic whiskey.
And damn it, we need to go visit Balcones.
We sure do. Road trip is in order. We'll have to.
And
talk
you know
about
what?
that.
I bet if we decide we're going to visit Balcones, I bet there's a few other places we could hit on the way.
Mm-hmm. And on the way back.
Road trip.
Yep. Yeah. Well, thanks to Adam, our producer on the Wheels of Steel, who made sure that our effects were firmly in place whenever we said on the show today, Ancient
Age.
Thank you. And that's the last time we'll do that, I promise. But have a
That's not the last time we're going to do that.
okay. I was speaking for myself, not for my partner. Have a great week, everybody, and we are looking forward to seeing you back here for next week's show. Enjoyable this one was. Thank you, Ian. Great to
Cheers,
see you.
sir.
Cheers, everybody. Finished before 3.